Okay, cool. We're gonna let everybody in. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. Feel free to turn on your camera if that is something you want to do. And if you don't want to, that is also okay. We're just talking about how it's Friday, so not making anybody turn any cameras on, that's for sure. And then if you could just stay muted in the call if you're not one of our speakers, just so that we can hear them well when they start answering questions. And we're just gonna give it another minute. I'm still letting people in, and then we'll get started. If you all wanna maybe, so in today's call, we have a mixture of like potential new students, current students and foundations, as well as career jumpstart students. So all over the process, we're going to answer questions about all the way from like, is UX UI for you? Should you do it? They're going to talk about their backgrounds before they change careers, all the way to like how they learned and then how they found the job and now what they're doing at their new jobs. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to drop them into the chat. I see a couple people already saying hi on there. And we'll cover those. We have a list of questions just in case nobody has additional questions, but feel free to drop them in there and we'll kind of go back and forth between the list and the questions in the chat. Okay, I think we can get started. I'm gonna keep doing that thing where I'm like letting people in and being distracted instead of asking questions. So can each of you maybe take turns telling us a little bit about yourself? Do you have a degree? If so, in what field? And then like, what was your work experience before you decided to transition into UX UI design?
You want me to go first? All right. So hi, everyone. My name is Serena, and I have a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in occupational therapy. And before I got into UX, I was a project manager doing digital advertising, project managing. Wow, let me back up, it's Friday. So I was a project manager working on digital advertising campaigns for companies like Disney, Yahoo, and Google. And I decided that I wanted to go back to school and sort of get beyond just throwing ads in people's faces and, you know, be a little bit more of a helper to the world and a good contributor. So I went that route, and that's where I actually found UX, because occupational therapists think a lot like a UX in terms of how they design their treatment and really getting to know the user, thinking about their motivations, their behaviors, their support, their environment, things like that. Which a UX person is really thinking about in terms of how they go through a product. Like, so I found it through there, and that's basically where I started and where I am now.
Okay, I'll go now. I'm Kelsey. I graduated in 2019 from college. I studied communications and psychology. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. I ended up working abroad in HR, and basically when I came back, I wanted something a little more design focused. So I thought maybe graphic design, but I didn't really know. And then kind of pursued that, realized I didn't really like it, and then came across UX and thought that would be a good merge of design with psychology and working with people. But I liked that you didn't need a specific degree for it. And that's what brought me here.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I have a bachelor degree in graphic design. And for a couple of years, I was looking into UX because I was getting worried because with graphic design, I could only seem to find part-time jobs. And with software like Canva, where businesses can just have a subscription and basically anyone can do design work, I was thinking, okay, I'm worried that my graphic design degree is going to get me nowhere in the future. So I was basically doing a ton of freelancing and having these part-time jobs and random side gigs like freelance writing. And so once I started researching UX design, I eventually saw a video with Maka, and it was like she was speaking directly to me. So I knew that I had to at least investigate it, and I am so glad that I did, because it's an awesome field to be in. So I feel very lucky.
Cool. So I think it's important to know, right? All three of you have like very different backgrounds, right? Like Serena already had a couple years of work experience in a different field. Rebecca had experience in design, right, for a couple years and like transition. And then Kelsey, fresh college grad, did not have a lot of work experience and does not come from a design background. Just to show like all of you, are all have a job, and spoiler alert, all job and are, succeeding in the field, but all come from different backgrounds. So that's kind of what we wanted to show today, is like three very different experiences going down the same-ish path, and how all three of you were able to be successful. Because I'm getting a couple of direct messages like, oh, what if my degree's not in this, right? So we even have people that don't have degrees that end up getting jobs. So these are just the three people that are here today to answer your questions. Let's go in order. So I think maybe tell us why you decided to do our course at Avocademy, and then what was your experience kind of going through the course, and maybe we'll bundle up a couple of the questions, like what was the hardest and the hardest part and the part you enjoyed the most.
Okay, you're gonna have to go back over those with me, but how I found Avocademy was basically I had gone through first when I was trying to figure out which way to go, either product management or UX design. Since I was thinking about product management because I had a project manager background, so I thought that was an easier transition. I had taken a Udacity course for product management, and I completed that, but I was like, you know what, this is like what I did before and why I moved out of it. I want to be more creative. So I wanted to go on the design side. And when I was researching that, I figured out that a lot of people were doing boot camps. And so I was looking at Springboard, General Assembly, and actually the UC Berkeley extension. And I had written on Reddit, I was asking people, what are your experiences with this? Was it worth the money? Did you get hired after that, having this prestigious, UC Berkeley certificate or not? And I got a lot of mixed reviews about it. And Maka had actually seen me type this on Reddit and wrote me about Avocademy. And it really piqued my interest in the sense that she explained about her mentorship. And when I was talking to other people in the other programs, that seemed to be one of the key things that were missing. It was someone that really was there for you throughout the process and after the process. And so that is why I decided to go with Avocademy, especially too. I mean, these courses were like $15,000 for UC Berkeley, and Maka's was extreme, like way lower than that. And I had just gotten out of grad school. I am a mom of two. I wasn't working. So I really needed an affordable option. And that was another reason I decided to go with Avocademy. And I am so grateful that I did.
I think part two of that question, sorry, but I bundled up way too many questions, was what was the hardest part of the course and then the most enjoyable part of the course for you?
I would say the hardest part of the course for me was probably interviewing people, only because I had no idea how to do that. I've never done this before, and I wasn't sure what kind of questions to ask. And what I really needed to know for my project. And you only get one chance. And so I didn't want to be at the end of it like, oh man, I should have asked these people this, because now I'm totally missing this huge thing in my project. I think that was probably the hardest, you know, just coming in as straight. I had no idea of how to do UX at all. And just crafting those. And even though you do have your questions checked by your mentors and all that, just to make sure you're on the right page, I would say setting up that process and going through that with other people without that experience was probably the hardest for me, because I'm the control freak, I guess. So I want to make sure everything's perfect, right? The most enjoyable for me is, of course, I love UI. So, and like doing high fidelity, doing the mood boards, doing the style guides. I love putting all of that together and seeing it just come to life. That is really my most favorite part. And even in my job now, I get really excited to show people what I put together. And really thinking about them personally, and even the colors that I choose and the font that I use, things like that, that I'm really thinking through every detail. That's probably my most enjoyable thing.
Awesome, thanks. Who wants to go next, Rebecca, Kelsey?
Sure. What was the first question?
Why did you decide to do the course? And then what was your experience, like favorite, least favorite part? Like what was most enjoyable?
Okay, so first, I basically saw a video about what UX was and kind of kept that in the back of my mind. And then when I realized that maybe it was something I wanted to do, I looked up skills of what was needed. And I was like, okay, this seems like something I could possibly be capable at. And then I talked to my friend's sister who had done a different boot camp. She had done a general assembly one. So that seemed the route to go. But I knew there were different options. And then when I started looking into the different boot camps, they were all so expensive. And then I was like, oh no, am I gonna have to spend like thousands of dollars paying for something that I don't even fully know if I want to do, or like what's the best one? Then I guess I got a sponsored ad from Maka one day, and it was like it was basically like call us with any questions, or if you want, you can text us. So I texted her on a Saturday morning with a million questions about just the course and kind of like why she started the boot camp and everything. And it seemed like it would be very personalized to what I was looking for. It seemed like I would be super supported, which I liked. And like Serena said, having that mentorship, I think is super valuable. And the price, I just feel like was like really worth it for what I would be getting out of it. Yeah. And then the second question, my favorite part. Also, if I'm missing anything, just let me know. My favorite part, I would say, is one, that it's so structured. So as Maka knows, I like being structured. So I like that the course is very broken down into different activities. And then you create a whole portfolio based off that. And then at the end, having real world projects, which I would say is the reason why I got my job, to actually show that you have experience. And then I would say even with the job portion of the course as well, it's very structured and I felt very supported. So overall, I liked the mentorship and just being able to ask questions whenever I needed. I would say the hardest part, one, I think just this is more applying to jobs, but having the motivation to do that, I had to apply to a lot. And I think just knowing that it takes time is something hard to come to terms with. And yeah, I think just like learning to think, like change my processes during the design process and trying to think like a designer was also something to adjust to, and what I'm still adjusting to. Yeah, I would say that's really it. Honestly, I think it was just more the process of changing careers rather than like the actual stuff.
Cool.
For me, I kind of touched on it before. It was the fear, a little bit of the fear of graphic design not being as relevant. Just from, I mean, I had been in it 13 years and was unable to find a full-time job ever. So, but I mean, I love design so much. So UX seemed like the right way to go. And again, I saw a sponsored ad from Avocademy, and it said, do you want to learn UX without paying $15,000? And I definitely thought that that was something that really piqued my interest. So I also was looking into General Assembly and looking on Reddit, looking on these forums and hearing mixed things as well. So I didn't think it was necessary to pay that much to get the skills I needed. And based on what people said, it didn't seem necessary either. So I also had mentioned when I saw Maka's video, it was like she was speaking directly to me, because she, like, everything I was worried about when it came to UX, she seemed to kind of relieve my nerves about it. And I also, the mentorship was huge. That was the piece that really got me interested. And I kind of went back and forth at first with Maka, like through email. Just, I was kind of unsure what direction I wanted to go, because I was thinking about other marketing related careers. And she was like super cool about it. Like, I asked her about some books, and I don't know, I just felt like she was very honest and upfront, and I liked that. And I felt like I had nothing to lose. And also the pandemic was the other reason that I just kept thinking, I cannot let all this time go by and not do something with myself. Like, I need to do something with all this time. So that was another reason. And with my graphic design background, that really made me fall in love with the UI portion of the course. And then also working with the mentors. And I just felt like I was able to stay on track throughout it and get great feedback on everything. And I would say the hardest part for me was probably just like minor things, because I'm like a perfectionist about design. So little things I would have on each frame I designed, I would notice like, oh, I want to make a change to that. And then I'd be re-uploading things during the prototyping portion. And there was just some moments that were time consuming, very time consuming. But besides that, I enjoyed everything about it.
Cool. Okay, so we're getting some awesome questions. So I'm going to jump into some of those. So in terms of the structure, right, all of you did like the foundations course where you did one project, just for the people that are not in the course. And then we're now calling Career Jumpstart. I think maybe we rebranded after you all finished. But in Career Jumpstart is where I think all of you did like a real world project, or one or more than one. And then we help with like the job search part of things. We have like a systematic approach that's like analytical to helping. So that's kind of the structure of the two parts. So the question here was from Chantel: how did you find the transition from bootcamp to landing your first job? How was navigating the job search? And do you find that the course prepared you for your first job? And then she said, thank you for your time. So let's maybe talk about like the job search and if you felt prepared or not. And then I may jump in and ask some questions as you all talk.
So for me, I had completed the course back in October of 2020. So this is right in the middle of the pandemic. I was applying to a lot of places and I was working part-time as an OT. I was applying at least 100 places. I was not tracking at that point, not until I think March of this year. And I applied to about 83 more jobs before I actually landed my first job. So my advice is that you're going to have to work and put out your resume, because there is a lot of competition out there. I mean, look who's all here. There's a lot of people here who are interested in doing UX. So it's really, you got to really hustle and, you know, put out your resume. So I think that was maybe the hardest part of my navigating the job search, is that I just really just had to keep turning and burning it. How did you find the course prepared me? I think the course prepared me immensely. You have to remember this is foundations. And I think that once I got into a job, I've really understood that a lot more. And I think that if I could give a piece of advice to you all when you're going through the course, is to really understand why you're doing each section of the course, because you have that in your toolbox as you're going through when you're actually working, like why we're doing what we're doing and why you're learning what you're learning. Because I think every job is different. And I've learned that, you know, I don't need to, I mean, when I do my job now, I go straight to doing UI. I don't do like wireframing first. I just go straight to UI, and that's okay for my job now. I don't know in another job if you have to do wireframes first and go through that, right? So it's all kind of different. So I think in terms of preparing you, it really gives you the foundation of how you can pull what you need to do any job out there in the workforce, whether it's a startup or with a big company. And how did I find the transition from boot camp to landing my first job? I would say I was really, really nervous. I think the issue with all new UXers is that we have that, what's the word, Maka?
Imposter syndrome.
Yes, yes, that's the one. And you'll hear a lot of people talk about that you really don't, you feel like you really don't know what you're doing. But I think the fact that I went through 3 projects with Maka through the career jumpstart really helps me understand how I work with other designers, how I'm working with the client, how I will work with a project manager or a product manager, because Maka is pretty much that for us. And that sort of helped lay the foundation as well. And I was able to also speak to that when I would go and interview and have like real world examples, which really helped me, especially when it came to the job that I got now. Was the only one that did a whiteboard session with me. And it was probably my most favorite interview because of that. And I was able to apply everything that I learned with Maka and how I think through things, and not just spewing out, you know, interview type, you know, questions. I was actually to show actually how I think and what I can produce.
Cool. I think just to round out your answer, Serena, you covered your experience job searching, how many jobs you applied to. Can you tell them about how long it took you? Because I think you kind of sort of started and stopped, but like you said, October 2020, and then you got your offer.
I got my offer in July of this year. And okay. So, yeah, and I was working part-time as OT. So I was really like doing things here and there throughout. This year is when I was really like, okay, put out the resume. But last year I was like here and there kind of doing it, but I at least did 100. I at least did 200 resumes for sure. And I got about 5 interviews with all of that.
Yeah, I think it was this year, probably earlier this year, when we kind of went back in and I made you start tracking them and like we started looking at them more often. Yeah. Cool. Kelsey, do you want to go next? Maybe your experience job searching, or if you want to just shock everybody, how many jobs did you apply to? And then what was the last question? How long it took you from when you started applying for work?
Okay, I'll probably forget half of that, so just remind me as I talk. Okay, so I started the course like January, and I think I started applying for jobs March. Is that right? Do you remember? Okay, yeah. And then, okay, so also though, side note, this is like my first like real-time job. So I had a post-grad internship last year. So I think also a lot of the hardship was I don't really have a lot of experience in general, so trying to get like a real job. But I applied to about like over 400. Kind of have done without Maka, harassing her every day. I think I had about like 20 interviews or so with different companies. A lot of it was more like needing more experience. Yeah, so I would say the interviews weren't particularly difficult. It was just more of like needing one to like start gaining experience. What else am I missing?
Talk about the length from when you applied for the job and then got the job, like your interview process, right? Because it took you 2 months. The job you accepted, you applied to 2 months before they gave you the offer, and you did like a bunch of rounds of interviews.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the job I have now, basically I applied early April, but because of COVID, their like interview process was delayed and some like back end stuff. So I think I applied in April. I had 3 or 4 rounds of interviews. I had an initial HR call. I had a call with who's my boss now. I had to do a like design challenge. They gave me a week to do like a mock challenge. Then I had to present that at a different time and like had, I think like a 3-hour interview. And then they did background checks and stuff. So then I got my offer, yeah, like late June. And then I started July 12th. So I had like 3 weeks before I started. So it was a process, but like in that time I was applying and interviewing other places. So it didn't seem as long, but I guess then when I went back for my last interview to look when I started, I was like, oh, wow, this has been a process. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
For me, I finished the course. I actually started the course the end of February and finished maybe May. And I was applying often on LinkedIn, which was something I hadn't done in the past. In the past, when I would apply for jobs, I would usually do like Indeed or Craigslist. And I mean, I would never hear anything. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try LinkedIn and see what happens. So I was applying on there daily. I swear I probably applied for like at least 20 a day. And I was like, even if it was something that looked like I was not fully qualified, I would still apply for it. And then towards the end of my searching, I started looking up junior designer. And I was seeing a lot more that I felt like I was qualified for, felt less imposter syndrome about. So but it's crazy because I had kind of sworn off Indeed from the past and just never hearing from anyone. But the job I ended up getting hired, it was actually on Indeed. And it was one of the earliest ones I had applied to, and it took them a while to get to me, but I had, I believe, 4 interviews with them and I got hired. And I started the role in July. So I finished the course in May and got a position by July. So I got really lucky. And I feel really, very like fortunate for that. So I would say to anyone who maybe is not okay with certain places to apply for jobs, like keep an open mind. Don't like just, I don't know, be defiant if there's something you don't like.
Yeah, I think that's great. Sorry, there's a car alarm going on outside. So each of you had like a very different experience in terms of length of time, which is also interesting. I wanted to go quickly, like a quick yes or no to this question, and then we'll go around just sharing what is your current role, if you want to share the name of the company you work for, and if not, just talk about like what your day-to-day looks like. But before we do that, we had a question here. Do you find yourself needing to have knowledge of React.js, Python, or JavaScript in your current role? Just like a yes or no from everybody.
No.
No, kinda. I'll say mostly no.
Okay, cool. That's like one of the questions we get the most, even from students currently in the course, is like, should I learn, coding? Even Rebecca actually asked me this a couple weeks ago. She's like, oh, I want to do some extra courses. Like, should I focus in coding? And I was like, absolutely not. Like, just, keep working on your design skills, right? Like maybe work on like additional research methods or something like that. So there are roles that do not require coding. And those are the roles that I recommend, because when you start getting to a role where you're doing coding and design, probably at a smaller size company, and you're going to be just doing a lot of work. So with that, do you all maybe want to go around and just give like a quick overview of where you're at, how long you've been there, kind of your day-to-day role, and then we'll jump into some more of these questions that I've been putting on here, which are awesome.
Yeah, so I started at my company. It's a small company called Fear Free Pets. And we're looking to help educate people on reducing the fear, anxiety, and stress in pets. So that's, when you bring your pet to the groomer or vet, or you have a trainer, how they handle your pet so it reduces the fear of going to these types of things. Yeah, so I am the sole designer there. I started in July. And since it's a small company, I have my hands in a lot of different things. I'm actually working as a product manager and a UX designer at the same time, which is really great for me because I'm learning how to combine these roles and then, think strategically as well as understanding the users overall. So I actually enjoy that, in having that knowledge, and I think it will prepare me for the future, which is why I agree with Rebecca and what she says, like, don't just be looking to work at Apple or Google or those kind of companies. Like, if you can get in a small company, I would highly recommend that because they can help expand your skills, I think, in a big way, especially if you have people there that can support you. So my day-to-day is a lot of different things. Mainly right now I'm working on a big project where I'm overhauling the whole website. So I'm thinking about what exactly our users want to do when they come to our website, how we position ourselves, how I lay out the content better. I'm thinking about user flow. I'm thinking about information architecture of the whole website, all of that. Everything basically in the foundations course I am doing. So yeah, that's me in my day-to-day, and I'm loving it. It's a lot of, I'm learning a lot, and I'm being thrown into it, but I'm also, I also have a great manager who is supportive and understanding of, my knowledge and also how I'm trying to research and learn things on my own as well.
Okay, I'll go now. So I work for a company based in New York called the Science Foundation. It's basically like a science research foundation institute. So they have kind of all different areas of funding different types of research, from everything to autism to space to everything in between, basically. Yeah, again, I don't remember the full question, but I would say
your day-to-day look like?
Yeah.
What do you do day-to-day?
Day-to-day right now. So I've only started a little over a month ago. So I'm still trying to really get up to speed with all the different teams. So I'm on the web development team. So it's me, another designer, and they're hiring another one, and 2 developers. So trying to work with them. And then we're kind of like the middle team, and all different other teams, aka like stakeholders, are on the outside. So kind of working with all these different teams and understanding what projects are important to them. So something I'm doing now, I'm doing an accessibility review, working on making a design system, redesigning as different pages. But I would say it really depends each day what the priorities are, and what team kind of has priorities. Oh, and yeah, I'm working remote, and then we're going in person starting September 7th.
The company I work for is a startup, but they've been around for a while now. And it is a software as a service company. So they have software that they create, like they have an app, and then they have a website that helps professionals, like, for example, lawyers and law firms. They help them to kind of start using social media as a way to advertise, but they also do it through something called employee advocacy, which is getting their employees to share things to social media. And then it ends up that those employees are directing people back to the main website. So it's kind of like word of mouth advertising. And right now I'm working with the development team a lot, development and engineers. And I have a product manager who was hired at the same time as I was. And I really enjoy working with everyone, and I'm still kind of getting accustomed to everything. And because their software has already been created, a lot of what I'm doing is making minor tweaks to things, like modals that have already been built. Maybe they don't look right, or we're doing a little bit of user research around certain new features that they're adding to the software. But like I said, I'm still kind of new, and they're still introducing me to all different parts of their company. So then they eventually put me on the social media team. So I'm doing a little bit of marketing and design work with that. And the company itself, my role is remote, but I right away was asked to go on a business trip and went to their main office, which was in Salt Lake City. And that was a really cool experience. So I met everyone there. And then they have an office in Buffalo, New York, and I'm in Buffalo now. And I just met everyone at that office. So I've met everyone that I work for. So it feels very, very real, and I love it.
Cool. Thank you all for sharing. So we're gonna do another combo question. I think if maybe Serena and Kelsey wrote their titles in here. Rebecca, if you can share what your official title is. And you can note, like, Serena and Kelsey's titles are both UX designer, but they both also do UI design. So a good lesson to learn is that this industry will call everything a UX designer as an umbrella term. And then each company is going to have different responsibilities for roles that sound the same. So when I was a UX designer, I only did UX, I only did wireframing. And we had a UI designer that did UI. But then at other companies, UX designer does everything. So just keep that in mind, read job description, ask questions while you're interviewing to really understand what you're doing. I'm also going to answer a question here. How do you choose a specialty in UX UI design? If I'm a beginner, how do I respond to an interviewer what I'm good at? I would say you have to figure out what you're good at. So what we do in the course is we teach you UX research, UX design, and UI design so that you can figure out, I hate this. Like Kelsey hated UI design, right? Like it was not something she enjoyed doing. She does it, yeah. She's like, don't tell anybody. She did not enjoy that portion. So when she was looking for work, she wasn't only going to look for UI design roles, right? Like Rebecca's amazing at UI design. So I'm sure like while you were looking, you applied to some only UI design roles. It wasn't like only blended roles. So I would say you have to try it. So like try all parts so that you know what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. Usually what you enjoy is going to be what you're good at or what you can work to be good at. And then at least even if you don't want to do UI, you can be empathetic towards what your UI designer you're going to work with does and understand that process. Or if you're not going to do research, you can understand that process. Okay, so many questions. We just answered what are your titles and the specialty. Also, you don't need to choose a specialty. It's really good to be a generalist when you start off. There's going to be a lot more job opportunities for you to apply to. We answered, I think, how many hours per week you all work, or maybe if you all can answer that in the chat, like, do you work 40 hours, more than 40 hours? And I think that depends too, based on the role. And then Sarah had a good question about Agile teams. So are you in an Agile team, and what are your stand-up morning meetings like? So are any of you in an Agile team that you can speak to it? Rebecca, yeah, go for it.
Every morning there is a daily stand up with the engineers and development team, and we do sprints every week, kind of going over what, well, I think it's every 2 weeks, and you just go over what's kind of on the plate for the next couple weeks. And we have a bunch of tickets and just have to make sure we're working through everything. I'm part of these meetings, but I have not had a ton on there myself yet. I'm looking forward to getting more involved.
I also am as well. We also work in sprints, so it's 3-week sprints for each team. I'm still, honestly, I would say that's the hardest part I'm having a problem with, is really just understanding the whole ticketing system and how to navigate that with sprints. But relatively, it seems pretty relaxed if things have to be pushed back or time-wise. I think it's just a way to organize things. Yeah, and then we have check-in meetings every day, and then meetings with different teams like once or twice a week.
Cool.
I'd say mine's similar, but it's not as defined.
I'll go for it.
Their
Yeah.
businesses are. I would say it's exactly the same. Every Monday morning, me and the dev team get together and we go through pretty much all of basically the ticketing system and what is on our plate, and what we can get done for the week. But it's not as, I don't think, a process is what you would see at a bigger company.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you, everybody.
Maka, I am seeing a lot of things about salary. And
yeah, I bunched up salary questions because we're gonna cover that in like 5 minutes. I just want to get to some other questions before we jump there, and then you all can disclose or not disclose ranges. And that's totally up to you all. Before we jump into there, I want to talk about, there was a question about portfolios. I think a couple of you had like some actually all 3 of you had some sort of like graphic design or branding work. And maybe one of you wants to talk about the strategy that we used about removing it and create only UX UI portfolio, just to kind of focus on that. I don't know who wants to take it. I think we did that specifically with Rebecca and Kelsey, and then for Serena, I made her bring her branding stuff to the bottom of her portfolio. But I don't know, any of you?
Sure, I'll start. So I basically made my UX portfolio on UXfolio. And then when I was trying to do graphic design, I had a website from Squarespace that I made. So what I did, I took a free version of Squarespace and basically linked it into my portfolio as like an extra tab. But yeah, the main goal is to make it so it's like, oh, this is like a nice little addition if they want to check it out, but it's not my focus and not what I wanted to do. So I think, yeah, that's important to be like, okay, you have a side skill, but what you want to focus on is not branding yourself, is that you can also do it. Because I heard some companies would make you like hire you as UX, but then be like, oh, you can do that too. So that was the goal.
Yeah, I had the exact same experience. I think it was good to have the focus on just the UX, and then I put my graphic design portfolio just in a link right on there. And I mean, they did look at my graphic design work as well, but it was definitely not the main focus.
Awesome. So we only have like 15 minutes. So if we don't get to your question, feel free to email me directly. It's maka@avocademy.com, or message me on Slack if you're already in the course. I'm gonna pick a couple more. So student said, I'm currently changing careers cosmetology to UX design. What advice would you give someone who new to UX design currently in Avocademy? So and it kind of goes with the question I had prepared, which is like, if you could give yourself one piece of advice when you were going through the course, what would that be?
Oh man, I know. I know you gave me this question. I was thinking about this. If I can give myself one piece of advice, I would just say be patient. I think I heard a lot of no's. And I got down on myself because of that. Like, well, am I not good? Did I not learn right? And really, that's not it. It's a learning curve, because I came from something that was not in design at all, really. I had a little bit of background working on advertisements, but I wasn't creating the advertisements. I was just managing how they were put together. But it's not like I was sitting there designing a ad template. But so that's why I would say be patient with yourself and know that each no will lead to a yes, because you're getting better and better and better as you go. And take up as many projects as you can just to get that experience, and just be eager to learn, and just don't give up on yourself, because it will happen. It's just getting that confidence. And I think that's where I was always teetering. I lost the confidence when I would hear no. I was like, oh man, well, I chose poorly, or, I did this and I shouldn't have done it, right? I would be really hard on myself. And really, it's pushing you to be better. Every interview, I got better and better. I got asked the most random questions that no one could throw me off by my fifth interview, because I got in the rhythm of it, right? So I think that would be my advice, is just don't give up on yourself. If you really, really like this, if it is fun when you're doing it, and you like really love learning about it and want to do more, and want to help create these great experiences for people that I think are very impactful, especially as we go more virtual in the world with this pandemic and everything like that. Keep going. And yeah, that would be my advice.
Yeah, basically mine would be the same kind of. As I said, I applied to over like 400 jobs. So I think at the time, even though I was getting interviews, I was like, okay, well, they're saying they're going fine, but I need experience, but I can't get experience, but I don't have experience. So I think knowing that the first job takes a while, and then once you have that under your belt, it's a lot better. Maka tells me every day I need to trust myself more. So knowing that I can apply these skills, and I really like the course. If I didn't take it, I wouldn't have gotten my job at all. So I think knowing that I do know things. And yeah, I think again, what Serena was saying is there's a learning curve. So like, even though I did the course and I feel like learned a lot and it definitely prepared me, I think the role depends on whatever company you're at. So I think just learning the company in general and starting working in a new career, there's a lot to learn and a lot of different routes to go. So again, being patient, which I'm not great at.
I agree with Kelsey and Serena on a lot of those. For me, I would say if you're going through the program, don't give up, because there's going to be times where you feel like you're kind of hitting a roadblock, or you're just not fully grasping something, but you'll learn quick that a lot of other people are feeling the same way, and the mentors are there to help you. So please take advantage of it. Don't feel like intimidated to ask a question, because I mean, honestly, asking questions is the smart thing to do. And honestly, you're going to feel so accomplished from just all the hard work you put into it, and having like a good looking portfolio at the end is so cool. And then when you're applying for jobs, I would say, yeah, you're going to get more confident the more you do. I feel like I was getting like overly confident almost on a few of them, because it's just something you become, I don't know, it just becomes natural after you do it a few times. And if you have to, this is something I did, if you're able to interview remotely, like through Zoom, if you keep a tab open in your browser of the Avocademy course and you kind of have the layout of the structure of everything, like user research, all this stuff, they're probably going to ask you questions like, okay, what would be your process for this? And you could just quickly see, look at your notes or look at your course and see, oh yeah, I did this, this, and this, and just get a quick refresher. And I mean, they weren't able to throw me off. So those are just some little tips.
Cool, thank you. That's all awesome. All right, I'm trying to answer any questions we didn't get to. Please email me and I'll get you some other content. We have an entire speaker series about imposter syndrome, so I'm gonna skip that question. I think we kind of touched on it before. So if you all want to see that, and if you're in the course, it's in the course content under imposter syndrome. I believe it was Haley that came on to talk about it. And then if you're not in the course, just email me and I'll send you the YouTube link for it. Okay, I'm going to answer a question real quick. Will the foundation bootcamp cover UX for AR, VR, or is it only based on web dev and native application UX? What we teach you is the process, which can be applied to anything. For example, like my specialty is voice. You can apply this to voice. And then depending on the problem you choose in the course, whatever the solution ends up being, that's what you're going to learn. So if it's mobile, you'll learn mobile. If it's web, you'll learn web. If it's tablet, you'll end up doing that for that one project. We do have a speaker series around designing for AR and VR as well in the course. So every week we bring on, every week-ish, we bring on a speaker or a panel or past students to talk about different topics. And one of the topics we brought a speaker on to talk about was AR and VR. So there is content in the course about that. Let's see. Okay. And then we had a lot of questions around salary. So do you think leveraging your master's degree, even though it wasn't design-based, allow you to negotiate a higher entry-level salary? I don't think your degrees matter in a way. It may hinder you having a master's degree. At least it did for me. I had a master's degree. I was trying to get an entry-level job. And people would be like, oh, we can't pay you that master's degree salary. So it's not like, oh, go get a master's degree and then you'll get paid more. Serena, correct me if you had a different experience.
Nope. I would say, I'm not sure if it hindered me, but I almost felt like no one really cared. They more cared that I had the experience in UX and managing that than they did that I had a master's degree in something.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of questions about salary. So did you start off making an entry-level salary? Can you share salary ranges you're in? I'm going to share like a one statement, and then you all can talk if you want to share any tidbits. You don't have to disclose your salary if you don't want to. So the average US salary is about $60,000 in UX field. Our students are averaging about 77,000. And the range is all the way from like 50,000 starting to 96,000, I believe is the range. So huge range, depends size of company you work at, where you live, where the company is based at. So it's not always going to be about salary, right? Like an opportunity where you're the sole designer and you can get in and learn what you would learn in 10 years of getting paid more in a year. It may be worth more than taking a much higher salary job. So that's just something to consider. But I'll let you all go quickly if you all have anything to say around salary.
Yeah, for me, I'm on the low end. I think only because I am at a very small startup. I mean, we only have 15 people. So we had a limited budget for what they could hire me as. And I actually went in, I didn't care, because my thought process, and I would advocate for this for everybody. My thought process is, I am applying to 200 jobs a day. I got 5 interviews back. My strategy is getting in the door. Once I'm in the door and getting that experience, then it's like only up from there. I know UXers that make up to like 150. So that's what the experience. So out here in Silicon Valley. So it's just getting in the door. So I would say starting as a junior, I'm on the low end. I'm about in the 50 range, 50 to 60 range. But that's low, especially for being out here, but they are a small company. And yeah, and that's just kind of where I'm at and where my strategy is. I just want to get the experience and move up from there.
For me, I'm a little more on the higher end, but I am based in New York City, so salaries there tend to be a bit higher, and we are supposed to go into the office every day starting the 7th. So a little more structured with that. So my range is more a 70 to 90 range. I was honestly just looking for experience, so it wasn't like I needed a job with a certain salary, enough to just move out of my house. Yeah.
I kind of feel the same way because I was just coming into it. I just wanted to get in there and start working, but Maka highly encouraged me to negotiate the salary at the beginning, which I wanted to so badly, but I was just intimidated. And I wish that, I mean, maybe the next time I'll feel a lot more confident doing that. But one good thing is that the range was 70 to 100,000 for the job. And they hired me at 70,000, knowing that I was newer to the field. But the company has a $7,000 bonus that they give. So, I mean, it's more like 77,000 when you consider that. So, I mean, that is the most money I've made before. So I am very happy with that.
Cool. Thank you all for sharing. I'm gonna answer one question here, and then we'll do like last bit of advice. So there was a question after Avocademy having the one case study. Did you all start applying for jobs, or did you add more case studies first and then apply? So we don't recommend anybody apply with just one case study. The stories everybody shared today has been with full portfolios. So Serena, I think you had 4 or 5 in there, right? 3, 4-ish by the end, 5. Yeah, Rebecca is the only one that only had 2 projects in her portfolio. And then Kelsey had 5, I think, as well. So when you finish Avocademy and Career Jumpstart, you start working on these like real world experience that they mentioned. You add those to your portfolio. Once you hit 3, we start the application process where we'll help you kind of go through everything everybody talked about. Mostly it's like moral support, challenge reviews, interview help, mock interviews. And then like Rebecca said, I will highly encourage you to negotiate your offers when you get to that part. So once you do that, we'll then review your offer and kind of help you through that. So you do want to have at least 3 projects before you start applying for work. And as you're applying, we also allow you to keep doing work so you don't go crazy just filling out these hundreds of applications everybody mentioned. I think the last thing I'd want you all to kind of go through is just like one piece of advice to anybody that's like going through this process or thinking about it, that, you know, from your experience.
I guess for me, my piece of advice for those thinking about signing up, do it, because I think the mentorship is huge, especially having that imposter syndrome that every UXer has just starting. I think having somebody in your corner always that you can feel like, okay, I'm in this situation, I have no idea what to do in my, like, who can I ask and not look like an idiot in front of my coworkers, but I can look like an idiot to my mentor, kind of a thing, right? As someone that you can go to and ask questions and feel comfortable with that, and help you grow, I think is huge. That I don't think you'll get anywhere else. All the mentors at Avocademy are awesome and always willing to help out, even after the fact that I've been gone since October, and I've still been PMOCA since then. So I think that is a huge thing. If you're thinking about it, it's really something I can't stress enough. And my advice as you're going through it is just go through it. I know some things feel a little bit tedious, especially doing portfolio, putting that all together and doing all these little tweaks. But I feel that once you know your portfolio and really in there and making it look great to show through your interviews, it really helps you speak to them and really understand the process. Because once you're doing it so many times, you've got the rhythm down, and you kind of know the steps, and you can go through that in any interview and just spew them out like nothing. And I think just go through it, even though it feels like a lot. Take the time and go through each step.
Nicely worded. Okay, yeah, I feel like mine will be a lot shorter, but basically everything Serena said. And I honestly feel like this was the best thing I could have done for my life, my career, not just because I'm on this panel, but I feel like my life, I had like no direction come like last December, January, and now I have a job. I'm moving out Monday. So I really don't think thank you. I really don't think I would have been able to do it without this course. And I don't know, I feel like I felt very supported. I felt like if I had a lot of questions I could ask. And also what's good is that you can like speak to other people who are taking the course throughout it. So getting to like speak to Rebecca and Serena, and like if I was struggling, asking them questions as well. So the mentors were great, but also having like classmates I felt like was super helpful. And even with my job now, I like messaged Serena the other day freaking out, being like, help me. So yeah, honestly, 10 out of 10 recommend. Yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I think this was one of the best decisions I could have ever made. If you told me last year, okay, you're going to have a job at a startup making 77,000, you're going to travel and go on business trips, you're going to have this community of people that are awesome and give you all this confidence. I mean, I would think you were crazy. But I am so fortunate that I took the course and gave it a chance. One thing I wanted to say is about the interview process. I would recommend taking all the advice that's in the course. I believe if they are asking you, do you have any questions for me? Ask about what do the first 90 days look like. And one other thing I wanted to mention is when you really, really want a job, they can tell. There are so many times I've had an interview where I'm kind of like, I don't know how I even feel about the company. But if you research a company and you're going to be interviewed by them and you really want that job, they can feel it. So act completely determined. Say, I will basically do anything to get this job. And I swear that they love it. Every time that I've really wanted a job, I end up getting it. So I would say just be confident and truly express how you feel.
Awesome. Thank you all. Well, everybody, not just the three of you, but thank you three for sharing your experiences. I hope this was helpful for everybody else. And hopefully you all learned some. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me try not to bombard these three on LinkedIn, but if you have questions, I'm sure they'll be happy to answer them. And thank you all for joining. Hope you have a good weekend. Bye.
Thanks.